Hey folks, this week we'll be talking about Dice Tower Awards 2022 and our predictions for the winners. Stick around.
You're listening to the Beans and Dice Podcast, a podcast about how we game.
That's right, I'm Mitchell.
And I'm Wayne.
And this is the Beans and Dice Podcast, a podcast about
How we game.
How we game. Well, Wayne, I am mourning the loss of all my gaming time as this is the last week of summer for me. I don't know about you folks in Florida, but I go back to work on Friday and the students come in next week. When's school gearing up for you guys?
So it's weird. We start on a Thursday in Hillsborough County. So it's Thursday the 10th. So my kid goes back to school next Thursday.
Okay, yeah, I think we go back on the Wednesday before that, the students do.
That's weird. Growing up, at least up north where I grew up, you always started on a Monday, and you had a whole week. It was this whole
yeah. I think the idea is like, you know, a lot at least around here. The first day is like orientation now, and the next day is like getting your procedures done, and then pre-test, and then you really start on the following Monday, like real classes.
I think here it's like how many days of instruction they have to have, so they build.
It's all about minutes.
Yeah, it's all about minutes, and then it's they work in more in the fall for hurricane days and stuff. But
yeah, exactly.
And then my college starts back up the following week. We don't have classes, but for me, that once classes start, actually, my job becomes a whole lot easier because
that makes sense.
You either have your money or not, right?
Right. Nice. So I've been trying to squeeze in a few more games. I finally got to play Earth, which I know a lot of people in the Discord have been talking about playing it on BGA. It really intrigued me. The first time I saw this game, I honestly thought it was about space because it was called Earth, and I thought those were little rocket ships on the board. And then I went to go play it on BGA. Yeah. And I read all the rules, and I was like, wow, this seems like a lot to play for a first time on BGA. So after reading the whole rule book, I elected to not do that. And a buddy of mine, Logan, picked up a copy the other day. He was in Dallas at Common Ground Games and picked up a copy, Kickstarter edition. And I played it yesterday. And honestly, that rule book was way overcomplicated for what that game is. Basically, play a card. Choose a color and do the actions associated with that color. That 90% of the rules. I know you've played this one, right?
Yeah, not a fan.
Really? Yeah. So I honestly, going into it, I was worried I wouldn't be a fan of it. And then the first couple turns, I was really overwhelmed because I started, I think, with like 12 cards in my hand based on my starting card. And I know that might be an ideal situation for people who like can really grok those kind of games. I would say I'm decent at those kind of card-based engine builders. It's not my forte. But as I kind of whittled my hand down to a smaller collection of cards that I could really specialize in, and then I could say, okay, well, how do I get these cards played? Well, I need to get some combos, and I can do that, and kind of make a game plan. At that point, I really, really enjoyed it. I ended up winning, and I got like 201, which the guy who owns it said he had never seen a score that high. I don't know what the average score is or anything, but it was the highest score in our play group of the people who had played a few times. And I don't know, a lot of people compare it to Ark Nova. I feel a lot more Terraforming Mars vibes, where it's kind of like that, especially Ares Expedition. The action selection, then other people can do things, and then you're building a tableau. I would say Ares Expedition plus Wingspan, because you're pretty much tucking cards and putting eggs on cards. That's the way he taught it to us, actually. It's like, hey, these sprouts, these are just eggs. These, what is it called? I don't remember the mechanic, but whenever you're putting the cards face down, he said those are tucked cards.
Yeah, those are like your dirt pile or you're trashing them or whatever it is. Composting.
So yeah. So we have a game going on BGA, those of us who played yesterday, and I need to play it a few more times to really understand and grok the strategy. But I liked it more than I expected. Why are you not a fan of it?
It's just fiddly. There's
absolutely.
I mean, I think. One, I'll be honest, I think I'm learning that I'm not necessarily the best at those like Tableau engine card building games. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's just not something that it hits my head right for some reason. And there's several examples of that where I'm trying to get better at it, but just some happens that, it may not be my best area of gaming. But it was kind of just dull and boring. Like at least with
Have you played it in person or just on BGA? I
played it in person. Played it in person and once, and then played on BGA a bunch. And if you want to compare it to Wingspan, man, I'll play Wingspan any day because it's pretty. You hit the cards, the birds, you can read little things. There's more to it. This other stuff, it was very dry, and just you build in a tableau and you pick a color, fire the colors, and lining all that up. And
well, see, that part of it for me, I feel like is why I could grok it more because I didn't have to think about like And don't get me wrong, I'm sure I still miss some things.
Yeah.
But I don't have to look at all 12 of my cards to figure out what I can do right now. I just look for the colors. Right.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't have to think about the order because I have to go in the order that the cards are in.
And that order and getting the cards to line up is maybe what I'm missing a little bit here and there when in my plays. But also just like even in person, like the building of those little things and stacking them up and one little bump and half of them fall over.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just very fiddly. There's a lot of little things. Like there's just so many little things going on in that game where it's, it's just, and even like it's funny as Rob and I, we actually generally agree on a lot of games. And then just disagree vehemently on some others. But on both of us, both heavily agree right now that Earth is like probably a game that I'll play, but it's not one that I'm really going to look to play because it's just too fiddly. There's too many little things going on that just get in the way.
Well, we all like unilaterally agreed after the play, like, this is a game we're going to play on BGA more than in person, probably because BGA is going to automate all those things for us.
Yeah, and what's funny is like the hype train of the last 2 years, and I think the game I'll talk about is Ark Nova. This week. Those are probably the two most hyped games in the last 2 years, right? And I had not played Ark Nova for a long time, but then Beans and Dice people talking about how it takes too long and it's, you're not going to, it's blah, blah, blah. And then everyone just loving Earth, right? In the last year, going, oh, it's so fast. It plays so this, that, and like all the things. I don't see, I think Earth's a good game. I don't think it's a great game. I think it's certainly very fiddly. But on the flip side, Ark Nova now, I've played it in person finally at Dice Tower East, and I've played it a few times now on BGA, and I'm starting to see it on why it's such a good game, right? It's not like top 5 all time like it is currently on the BGG ranking list, but I can see the knock being too long. But I'll say this, of all the games in the last month I played of Ark Nova and Earth, I've much more enjoyed Ark Nova than I have Earth.
Really?
Yeah, it just I like the idea of trying to it's the polyomino piece of fitting it into your zoo and then developing okay, what strategy I'm going to do, what kind of animals or what continent I'm going to go for. I've liked that more, and I get a better feel from that than I do from Earth, where it's just play a card and do a color. Like you could strip off the Earth theme from that game, the plant and fauna, and just change it out with anything else. It's really, it's kind of like that multiplayer solitaire. You're just doing your own little thing.
I disagree. I mean, there's a lot of interaction in that. Whenever I pick an action, it's letting you do something, and if I'm not paying attention to you,
Yeah, but I'm not. You're not. You're picking an action, and I get to do things. But you're not picking that action because, like, all right, let me look at Wayne's board and see what he doesn't have, and I'll pick the color that he doesn't have in his board. So I'm getting a benefit for you picking a color, but you're picking that color had no bearing on.
You're right, but I think as you play more and as you get better at the strategy, that's something that will come into play. I definitely don't know the game well enough to be able to do essentially hate draft.
I've never played that way, like in almost any game where, like, if I have to pay attention to what's on your board as much as on mine, I'm not gonna probably do that.
Dude, Rob loves doing stuff like that. Rob will always pick. It could like not benefit him at all, but he knows it's gonna even slightly benefit you. He will do it.
Yeah.
Take it away. I mean,
in most cases, that strategy doesn't really work out in the long run. 9 times out of 10, if you're hate drafting or if you're doing something to hurt somebody else that doesn't benefit you as much as another move, then it's not going to win you in the long run. Most games it's not going to win. But no, I mean, I don't mind. I don't dislike Earth. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Earth's a bad game. I think it's a solid game, and I think I probably need to play it more in person to understand it. I think it can be a little busy on BGA.
Like Tapestry, if it automates so much for you. You don't really understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's hard to understand everything there. But no, I like it. But on the flip side, I think Earth, even if I played it a bunch of times in person, I'm still going to think it's a pretty fiddly game. And I think that detracts from it. But Ark Nova, the more I've played it, I don't know if I'd play it in person a lot because of the automation and the speed, the async speed that you can.
Did you ever think that you were going to be a defender of Ark Nova like that?
Not really. I mean, I always bash. I still bash it. There's no way Ark Nova for me is a top 5 game of all time. You have to be a pretty special game to get up in there. And we'll see if Ark Nova with an expansion. And my biggest complaint about Ark Nova is a game that comes out and within the year of it coming out, it's in the top 10 or top 5 of all time. I just don't, to me, you have to be a very special game to be that meteoric and a rise. A game like Brass, Brass Birmingham now number 1. is new to the list, but it's really just an iteration on an older game that's been 15, 20 years in a renowned game, right? So my biggest complaints about Ark Nova was everyone saying it takes 4 hours to play and that it just shouldn't have that meteoric rise. I always assumed it would be a very solid game, and I played it and I enjoyed it. And I think I'm enjoying it more playing it on BGA and learning some of the ins and outs. And I think it's a game that as you learn to play and you know the deck of cards, you know when to pivot, or I was trying to go for this strategy, but I need to pivot away from it because I'm not going to be getting those animals or something like that. So,
how long have your plays of Ark Nova been? Have you or was it mostly online?
It's mostly online, but I mean, an async, which makes it a lot easier for me. But we played at Dice Tower East, and it was 3 hours.
Yeah,
and that was with the teach because Dan and I were new like the first time we played in person.
Well, at my buddy Logan, who taught me the game, he said on BGA, Earth takes forever if it's async because every turn, everyone has to take a turn. He said he's been a game for like 2 weeks and he still hadn't finished one.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think. I have to think. Maybe the people I'm playing with take their turns faster, but I think when it's your turn, you just activate all your stuff, right? And so
yeah, but it's just like you can't go to the next person's turn until everybody has done their triggers.
Right. Yeah. So I think the benefit of the Beans and Dice crew that we normally play those games with is even though the games are set up for one turn a day, most people are taking a couple of turns a day, so the games will go faster. Yeah.
What about you? What you played lately?
Well, I mean, the Ark Nova they've been talking about, and that's really the big one there. And we talked about it on the show last Thursday. We played Manhattan Project Energy Empire.
Carlos had posted about it in the Discord too.
Yeah, we talked about it on the Thursday show. That was a really good game, man. I'm like, damn, I'm so mad I don't own a copy and it's out of print. And just
who had it? Where did it come from?
It's had like 3 different publishers now. The original.
No. I mean, in the crew, it was Carlos' game.
Rob owned it. Actually, yeah. Because we were all talking about going to see the Manhattan Project or Oppenheimer, excuse me. We were all and we were like, well, let's play Manhattan Project, but no one owned Manhattan Project, but we own Manhattan Project Energy Empire. So I was about as close as we get to it. So we played that, and then I think I'm the only one from the crew that actually went out and saw Oppenheimer right afterwards. Which
I need to go see that movie soon.
Fantastic movie. I mean, does not feel like 3 hours. It like doesn't. There's no point where you're just like, oh come on, let's go. And you have to see it in an IMAX or as big theater as you can because just the visuals and the sound is really good. And a history buff, Nolan did great at being very historically accurate to the facts as known. I've done a bunch of reading this week, and like every character was pretty accurate to the real life counterpart, and the cast is more amazing than I thought it was going to be. There's so many actors that you'll recognize. So it was good. It's a really good movie. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that'll bring us into our topic for the day. Last year, or maybe was it the last couple years? At least last year. We got together with a bunch of the crew members, Wayne and myself, and Rob and Carlos, and we talked about our predictions or who we would want to win the Dice Tower Awards last year. And then afterwards, we came back, and we kind of reassessed and responded to that. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get all 4 of us or even Mike and the other guys together at one time. So Wayne and I are still going to chat about it. They're going to chat about it some more on the Thursday show as well. So get ready for a lot of Dice Tower content, Dice Tower Award content this week, right? Wayne?
Yeah. I think it is unfortunate. We just scheduling and life being busy, we can't all get together. But I think probably on the show or in the future episodes, we'll talk about the winners. And we'll have sort of our consensus and how we did on our individual picks, but we also have the Beans and Dice community, and I had a poll in there, and we'll give a recap of how the community did with their voting based upon the winners. And so I think we'll move towards going towards a review of the winners with the whole group of us, but at least you and I today just give here's who we think is going to win and why, and go from there. So.
And I will say, last year I believe Wayne and I tied for most correct picks out of the crew, so I'm trying to win again this year, so we got to have some good picks. I'm looking at the list here, and we have a lot in common, so we might have some good luck again. Last year we
had nine right out of 15 categories. We each had 9 right and 6 wrong. Was our last year's prediction.
That's a pretty good record, I would say.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, so we start off with Best Welcoming Game. A lot of these within the categories are repeated, so we'll probably have heavier discussions earlier on, and then as we get toward the end of the list, we'll say, refer to what we said about this game earlier.
Yeah.
But so starting off with best welcoming game, we have Acropolis, Boop, Flamecraft, Ready, Set, Bet, and Trekking Through History. I've played every single one of these games, and for me, firmly can say that I vote for Trekking Through History. What about you, Wayne?
Yeah, same. I'm with you there. I've played all the games in this set. Excuse me. And I think Trekking Through History is the most welcoming game. I think it's a game that you can play 2, 3, 4 players. It's very easy to explain. And I think some of the other ones in this category are also nominated later on. And I think that I mean this is kind of a little meta thing. Is I'm going for like one game's not going to win like 3 or 4 categories. Anymore, right? So,
yeah, you can each have your fair share.
Yeah, each can get an award. So I think there may be 1 or 2 that wins a couple of categories, but yeah, I think Trekking Through History is a clear winner here. And I'm also a little meta thinking as looking at the Dice Tower crew and the Dice Tower podcast people and their network that are voting on this. Just thinking about how they've reacted to the games over the course of the year. I think they liked all the games in this category, but I think Trekking Through History is going to get it.
So briefly, I'd like to chat just about each of these in the category. So Acropolis, for me, I've been pretty vocal. I don't like this game. Even if I did like the game, I don't think I would want to vote for it in a welcoming game thing because, yes, I would say the base rule set is not too crazy to understand, but kind of like the 3-dimensional strategic thinking of how you are laying stuff out. For me, it was, and maybe it's because I'm not great at like puzzly games and spatial awareness. For me, it was a little overwhelming just trying to think, okay, I have so many options on where to put this. And also there's a third dimension I could put it in. I would be worried that would potentially scare off newer players.
Yeah, I think the scoring in that can get a little crazy and a little complicated. Where I think that's where it didn't rise to the best welcoming game to me because, it's fairly simple in its mechanics, but as far as complexity and understanding scoring and how to win and things like that, Trekking is a lot simpler.
Yeah. I mean, I can explain Trekking to you in about 30 seconds, like literally the entire rule set. And the game is super breezy, super fast. I taught it to some newer gamers in my group, and I think we immediately just played a second game of it because it was so quick. They enjoyed it so much, and like they actually did well, even though I had played it several times, and they're not as big of gamers. For Boop, it's a close second for me, I think I would say. This is very welcoming. I can play it with my 8-9-year-old kids. They love it. The only reason it doesn't get my vote is because although the rule set is light, it is deceptively complicated to do well in that game. Like, oh yeah, I'm just dropping cats on a bed, but like you have to think about the side effects of your actions and plan like 3, 4, 5 turns ahead to actually win that thing.
Yeah, I don't think unless you play a lot of chess or checkers or abstract strategy games, Boop is a iteration on an abstract strategy with a cool theme. So I don't know if that's welcoming because it is a
The theme is welcoming for sure.
The theme is welcoming, yeah. But the game itself, like you said, when you get into those kind of games, not everyone's a good chess player, right? And so not everyone's going to get grok Boop, and it's I've actually had a game of Boop going with a buddy of mine. We've played, I don't know, like 30 or 40 games, and I think I've won 39 out of the 40. And it's
wow.
I just don't think he's not getting the whole get 3 kittens together, get the 3 cats, and they get 3 cats to win. And it's like, I just haven't had a chance to talk to him and be like, dude, you understand that the purpose of this game is to do this, right? Because, I think it's a game that is welcoming as far as theme, but as far as the strategy, it's where you're going to separate.
Mm-hmm. On Flamecraft, it's kind of similar, in my opinion, to what we were talking about with some of these tableau games. There's just a lot of card text that you have to read, and I know, like, there's only a certain number, and then there's just repeats of them, but in my first game, I didn't like constantly having to check, what does this dragon do, blah, blah, blah. And so, again, just on a welcoming note, I think that Trekking Through History is more welcoming.
Yeah, for me, like I said, I'm going welcoming as far as how I can teach to play it and get a new gamer to play. And while Flamecraft is a cute and pretty game, I don't think it's a new gamer is going to really jump into that super easy. So.
Yeah. And, I lied. I said I played all these games. I have not played Ready, Set, Bet. I was thinking of Long Shot. But you played Ready, Set, Bet, right?
I have, yes. And I wouldn't go with this, too, because my main thing is I don't think Ready, Set, Bet is good unless you have 5, 6 max player count type game. It's not a 2, 3, or 4 person game. It could be, But that game is just really shines when you have a big crowd and it's, raucous and everyone's like throwing down bets.
It's real time, right?
Yeah, it's a real time game, so you have to really think quick and you're throwing down bets. And so, not.
It's really hard to have real time games with new gamers because they're going to have questions. And like if you have to stop and answer a question, it kind of just ruins the vibe of it being real time.
And there's no stopping. I mean, I guess if you're using the app, you can pause you might be able to pause it, but yeah, I wouldn't do that.
All right, so on Best Expansion, we've got Dune Imperium Immortality, Dune Imperium Rise of Ix, Star Wars Outer Rim Unfinished Business, Viticulture World, and Wingspan Asia. Yes. My vote is going to Rise of Ix. I have not played Immortality, to be fair, but actually, literally yesterday, I was supposed to play it with my buddy Doug, but he realized that he didn't have enough sleeves, so we would have been clearly known which cards were from the expansion. But I was looking, and he explained the mechanics to me, and it feels a little bit like jumping the shark for Dune Imperium. It's already got a lot going for it, and it looked like they were just like, hey, let's completely change the game. But that is without a play. Have you played? I see you're also voting for Rise of X. Have you played Immortality yet?
I have not. But of the two expansions for Dune, that's the one that I think people have talked about. It adds to the game. It makes the game more complete as far as what you're. It adds a certain level of the game, whereas Immortality is just more. Right, it doesn't necessarily enhance the game. It may even bog it down a little bit. But yeah, Dune versus Stegmaier. Rise of Ix. I think Dune is a great game, and I think the rules in Ix add to that and make it even better. And so that's why I think the expansion. I think
Dune is.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think Wingspan Asia. It adds a duet mode or 2-player mode, which is kind of cool. So that adds to it. I like that. And same thing with like Viticulture World. That adds a whole different gameplay, which is very, I like it. But I don't think Viticulture World or Wingspan Asia make the existing game that much better. It adds different things, which is okay. But
it's almost like they're standalone games. At least I know Wingspan Asia adds like new cards, right? But the true innovative thing is that duet mode. So those two, I don't really see them as expansions because you can't play them with the base game. I was thinking the exact same.
Yeah, exactly. And then Star Wars Outer Rim I played that and it was good. It's it just adds to the game. It helps speed it up a little bit maybe. But again, it doesn't enhance the game as much as the X, and that's why we both went with that one. So.
Well, one more note on Immortality. I think if Dune is like your lifestyle game, this is the one for you, but it's not just for like the general populace. With Rise of Ix, which is really cool, I usually don't like whenever expansions have overlays and like take away some of the options that you had in the base game. But Rise of Ix covers, I think it's like the top right, like green or blue area, because like they heard the feedback from the people. People said, hey, we never go to these spaces. So it took a part of the game board that was almost essentially dead and revamped it with the really cool the shipping track, which is my favorite part of the game. It's kind of like the Falconer in the Expedition Leaders of Lost Ruins of Arnak, where it's like you're pushing up a track and you can choose to recall at any point. Of course, if you wait longer, then you get a better benefit, but do you need it now for a lesser benefit? And it adds the dreadnoughts to make combat a little bit more dynamic. They're stronger and they stick around even if they went into battle before, without completely reworking the entire game.
Yep.
Best party game. We've got Blood on the Clock Tower, Feed the Kraken, Green Team Wins, Phantom Inc., and Ready, Set, Bet. So I feel like a complete failure in that I have played none of these. I think I put my vote, if I remember correctly, on Ready, Set, Bet, just because I've heard a lot about it, and it seems like something that'd be my jam. It's just no one in my group has it. So I'm going to defer to you to talk about this category because I know you've played some of these.
Yeah, I mean, Blood on the Clock Tower is a beautiful game, but it's really just Are You a Werewolf?
Right.
Amped up, right? So I'm just kind of I'm soured on those games a little bit, just because they're more of it's almost those kind of games become a lifestyle game, and at cons, just people they play that game and that's all they play, and like it kind of turned me off to it over the time. I haven't played Feed the Kraken or Phantom Inc., and I don't know enough about them to even say things. So really, for me, it came down to Green Team Wins or Ready, Set, Bet, and I like Ready, Set, Bet. And Ready, Set, Bet was good, at 6 or 7 players, and it's always a lot of fun. But I went with Green Team Wins because, one, it's infinitely expandable. You could play with 100 people if you really wanted to, right? And we played it once at Dice Tower East after we did the podcast that Thursday, and man, it was just a blast. It was most of the Beanies and Ice crew. There was probably 15 or 20 of us. and it was rolling, laughing, like people were like, how could you do that? Like one of the clues was like Jennifer blank, right? And half the people put Aniston and the other half put Lopez. And it was like, how did you put Lopez over Aniston, right? And it was like, so I had the most fun with my one play of Green Team Wins, where I just think that's the kind of party game you could bust out and anybody's going to have fun with it. You can play with the kids. You can play with adults. Ready, Set, Bet is a horse racing game where you're betting in real time. It's pretty quick, but I went with Green Team Wins for this one.
Cool. That'll bring us to best solo game. We got Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, Frostpunk, Heat: Pedal to the Metal, Return of the Dark Tower, and Wayfarers of the South Tigers. I voted for Heat because I have not played it solo. I'm not a solo gamer. I've not played any of these games solo. The mechanics of that game seem like they will lend themselves well to easily running an AI. I'm not even sure how the mechanics work, but I hate solo games where they have to like it's basically a completely different game than the base game, But I'm assuming you're flipping a deck, which is essentially what a real opponent would be doing, and just moving the car forward that much. So it just seems like it'd be a pretty seamless integration from what I know, having played a multiplayer version of the game.
Yeah, I thought about that, and then I'm thinking about if you're going to run 5 or 6 different cars, and how does that all work? And so I'm not necessarily a solo gamer either. And so I just went on a limb and just went out Frostpunk because to me that it seemed like the kind of game that you could kind of run solo. Like if you wanted to play like one of those big campaign games, you could solo it, right? And you could just play a couple of the characters and
basically like two-handing it.
Yeah, two-handing it. So that's why I went with Frostpunk here, and it's really mostly because I think I was going to put some of the other winners, some of the other groups in category in other wins, and so by process of elimination, I said, well, if Return to Dark Tower wins here or Wayfarers wins here, then this category, maybe it's Frostpunk, right? We'll see. So probably going to be wrong there. I'm probably going to be wrong there.
All right, that brings us to best two-player game: Beer and Bread, Boop, Caesar Sees Rome in 20 Minutes, Splendor Duel, and War of the Ring, the card game. I went with Boop. We talked about Boop a little bit ago. I really like the game. I think it's a great two-player game. Not welcoming, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I went with Boop as well. I think Beer and Bread might sneak in there because it's getting a lot of.
I could see that.
A lot of getting up there. Caesar Sees Rome in 20 Minutes was a fun game, but I don't know that's going to attract a lot of people. Splendor Duel, I think a lot of people are going for it, but I think of all the duel games that have come out, I think Splendor Duel might not be the best out of all of them. When you think about like all the other, like there's Splendor and Azul and like all the other ones.
Takedo, Seven Wonders.
Yeah, Seven Wonders Duel, which is fantastic. But so and then War of the Ring, the card game. I don't think there's gonna be enough people that have played that for it to. And it's also I think that's the one that can play 4-player too, right? I don't know. Sometimes
I'm not sure. I don't know.
There's so many of the War of the Ring games right now where it's like, which one's the
it's like diluted.
Game?
Yeah.
But
my comment on Beer and Bread, I like the mechanics of Beer and Bread, but it's super unforgiving. Like if you don't have exactly what you need, and then you have to pass your deck, and it's like, well, I can't get I can finally get what I need, but I don't have that card anymore. And then also it's like you could have 500 points in beer and 2 points in bread, and then you have 2 points, and it's just. I understand, rules are rules, but I just feel like that game, at least in my plays of it, has been like a kind of a negative player experience just because you get screwed in so many different ways.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Best reprint: Castles of Mad King Ludwig, Cat in the Box, Get on Board New York and London, Libertalia, Winds of Galecrest, and Return to the Dark Tower. Again, I haven't played any of these, but I put Libertalia because I'm a Stonemaier fanboy.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's enough people that are, excuse me, that like the changes of it, but also don't like. There's a lot more people who are like grumpy old men about the change in the artwork and the style there. That's why I didn't think it was going to win. I went Return to Dark Tower here. I think the crew of people that are voting on this tend to be gamers that have been around for a while. So there's a nostalgia factor for that Return to Dark Tower. So I think it's going to win a couple of awards. I think there's always been a lot of love for Jamie's games and Stonemaier games, but I think there's also been a lot of love for restoration games amongst the Dice Tower Awards in the past. So I think the best reprint is Return to Dark Tower.
All right, that brings us to best co-op: Core Quest, Lands of Glazier, Nemesis Lockdown, Return to Dark Tower, and Star Wars: The Clone Wars. I went with Core Quest just because, it's kind of has not much to do with the game itself, but I just love the story.
Yeah.
A dad and his daughter making this game, and like I want to play it with my kids. That just. It tugs on the heartstrings,
Yeah, I think Core Quest is going to win an award. I just don't think he's going to win this one. It's Dan Hughes. I mean, he's been a part of the Dice Tower community for a while, so I think he's definitely going to get some love. But I don't think I went Return to Dark Tower here again. So I had two in a row for them, but I think that's where it ends as far as Return to Dark Tower winning. I think the other one, Lands of Galzier, is a I know my brain, not Z, but Mike DeLisio is a big proponent of it, right? So he's talked it up a bunch, and I don't know if that'll help carry it forward, but no, I think the last two, Reprint and Cooperative, are going to go to Return to Dark Tower.
Yeah, I've never actually heard of this game, and I'm just looking at the spreadsheet, and you spelled it wrong. So if anybody tells me a problem about how I pronounced it, blame Wayne.
Lands of Galzier.
The L and the A are swapped.
That's my dyslexia kicking in sometimes.
All right, best small publisher. Not all things we've talked about so far. Blood on the Clock Tower, Queer Quest, Flamecraft, Planet Unknown, and Three Sisters. I went Planet Unknown just because I like having a charcuterie board in my game. You know?
Lazy Susan. It's lazy.
Yeah.
I did well. Planet Unknown. I think of all of the, again, I think Queer Quest is going to win, but not this one. I think when you look at the games out there, Planet Unknown has gotten a lot of hype. It's already going to have an expansion coming out for the Kickstarter and all this other stuff. I think that's going to carry the day. The fact that it's a well-respected gamer's game. It's got that unique kind of Lazy Susan thing in the middle. It's kind of a good first small publisher game.
Yeah, I'm like I've said before, I'm not great at like spatial puzzles and tile laying, but this one, I'm not saying I'm necessarily good at it, but I'm able to grok it and like make sense of it and enjoy it. Very rarely do I play a game with polyominoes and say, hey, I want to play that game again. But I have played this game several times. I know it got a little bit of hate, specifically at Dice Tower last year. We were playing it, and I think it was Dan was hating on the really like cheap washes on some of the miniatures of like the little spaceship or walker things. That kind of stuff doesn't bother me. I don't know if it would bother more people. In terms of Three Sisters, that roll and write, I like roll and writes, and I like heavier games. This one just seemed like it had too much going on. Like, it's one of those games, kind of like almost like an Uwe game. Think of like Feast for Odin or Agricola or something, where like there's no way you can do everything. You have to play that game 2, 3, 4, 5 times, in my opinion, to actually be able to see how all the things work, because you just can't. You'd spread yourself way too thin for how short the game is. So that was my 2 cents on that. Have you played Three Sisters yet?
I haven't. That's one of the ones in that category I haven't gotten to.
Yeah, like a farming roll and write. They have a bunch of other ones about to come out. I think that's the same company that's doing like French Quarter and that car roll and write one as well. I can't remember the name of it. But okay, moving on. Best new designer: Acropolis, Blood on the Clock Tower, Boop, Queer Quest, and Starship Captains. So the only one here that we haven't yet talked about is Starship Captains, and that is my nominee. That is such a fun game. It's so easy to teach. So much strategy. The theming is fun. You're basically playing Star Trek off-brand. It's only a 6-hour playtime. You can play another game or
only 6-hour playtime.
Play it again. What did I say? 6 hour?
You said 6 hour.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking 60 minutes and 1 hour, and I put those two together. Sorry, 60-minute or 1 hour playtime.
6 hours. Yeah. I'm out. No, I have not played that yet, but I do want to play it. I love Star Trek. If you're not watching Strange New Worlds, it's fantastic. It's the best Trek in years. So I would love to give this a shot. But here's where I'm slotting in Best New Designer, Queer Quest. Because come on, it's a dad and his daughter. You know, they're the designers. They designed it, right? So I'm going with them here. When you talk about a game designed by a young girl, I think that's awesome. It's an awesome story that it started out as a school project, like, during the pandemic, when they were trying to keep up on education and stuff. And her and her dad came together and said, well, as part of your schoolwork, let's use your schoolwork and do it in a cool way. Let's design a board game as part of this project. And then from there, it went to, this is actually a pretty good game. What if we actually produce this game? I think the story there wins the day. So,
that's pretty cool. All right, best theming. We've got Heat, Pedal to the Metal, My Father's Work, Nemesis Lockdown, Return to the Dark Tower, and Wonderland's War. I was really torn because truly I think My Father's Work has a pretty good chance of winning for best theming. I cannot deny the theming in that game is just oozing with character. I just didn't enjoy the game, so I don't want to vote for it. But I also think Heat is very thematic in that what you're doing has to do with racing. Like, oh yeah, I can shift down real quick, but then my engine's going to overheat, so I need to put some heat in my deck. I think the mechanisms and the theming really go hand in hand in heat, but I do think it's probably not going to win. It's just my personal preference. And you put Wonderland's War, right?
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I don't think as far as theming. It's a racing game. Yeah, okay. The theme is racing. To me, I think My Father's Work is. You make a good argument there. Is it's oozing. I just don't know how many people are playing that game because it's kind of a big, heavy game with like the app integration and it's play multiple things. So I went with Wonderland's War here, and my viewpoint is, you take the Alice in Wonderland books, and how are you going to put it in a board game? Well, it's like you have the Tea Party where they're fighting over control. And then you go to the board and you're fighting over for all the areas of Wonderland. I think that theme is awesome, and it comes through in the game, and the game is more accessible than, say, My Father's Work or Nemesis Lockdown. So I think when you look at all of those, Dark Tower, that's not a theme. There's no. To me, Wonderland's War is a theme that exists, and you're able to take that theme and put it in a board game, and you translated it so well. Is where I kind of that's where I went towards that as my pick.
I think if I just haven't played Wonderland's War yet. I think if I would have played it, I'd probably agree with you because just looking at the pictures, you can tell it represents the theme well.
Yeah.
All right, best production value. Let's be honest. Is there any competition here? We got Endless Winter, Flamecraft, Foundations of Rome, Return of the Dark Tower, Richard. Again, Wayne, I'm blaming you. I know it's Return to Dark Tower, but there's a "the" in there in the spreadsheet. And Wonderland's War. Foundations of Rome. Come on. No one can deny. This is a game that could be cardboard pieces on a flat board, and there's a mini for every single building. This has got to win Best Production Value.
Well, and it's going to be. They're coming out with a version of this that's just cardboard next year.
Well, yeah, that makes total sense. But, of course, they got to get everybody's money first.
Yeah, exactly. I think Endless Winter has tremendous production value. It was like I think all of these games just have phenomenal production value, and it was hard. Wonderland's Lore was right up there as far as production value because the little chips that you put in the bag and the miniatures and stuff. But having just won the theming, I didn't want to put Wonderland's War twice, and so I Foundations of Rome just because of the most overproduced game. I think when you look at all these other games. You can't really get rid of the tower from Dark Tower. The Wonderland's War, you got to have the figures. The Endless Winter, pretty much everything makes sense. The only one of these games where you could literally, you said, turn everything into cardboard and it's the same game. No difference in gameplay, no difference in aesthetics, really. It's Foundations of Rome. So, of course, best production value because they way overproduced this game.
I think it was in an episode of At the Table with Tom and Eric. They were talking with Emerson, the designer, and I'm pretty sure he said, I designed this game as like a polyomino game, and then, Arcane Wonders was like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. Hold my beer kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like even he was surprised that the game turned into that.
Right. Yep.
All right, moving along to best artwork, we've got Endless Winter, Flamecraft, Merchants of the Dark Road, Trekking Through History, and Wonderland's War. This was a hard one for me to decide. I ended up going with Flamecraft just because those cute little dragons are, adorable, but Merchants of the Dark Road was a close second for me. I think I'm biased because I really like that game, but they do have some cool, like the art on the animals and things that are your companions. But I think Flamecraft is a little bit better there.
Yeah, I went saying I went Flamecraft as well. Endless Winter is nice art, but it's very repetitive art in that you've seen that artist's style. I think it's D'Amico, maybe. I could be wrong there. Don't quote me on that. But whoever designed the art for Endless Winter has his artwork. You've seen it in other games, so it's not like new to me. Wonderland's War is great artwork, but it's very just classic. Alice in Wonderland. I felt that the Foundations of Rome art, I'm not buying that. And Flamecraft, you have this. It has this new world where the dragons, and it's got this motif through it. And I think the art came through in that better than the other games. The other games have better production values for sure, but when you look at production versus art, I felt Flamecraft had better art.
I also considered Trekking Through History because I really do like the cards, but whenever I thought about it, I think I like the cards for what they are and not for their art, like just the cool things you can do in history, not necessarily the art style or anything.
Yep.
All right, for best strategy game, we've got Carnegie, Endless Winter, Planet Unknown, Wayfarers of the South Tigers, and Woodcraft. I again went Planet Unknown. Woodcraft I considered, but I just feel like that game is too unforgiving. Have you played Woodcraft yet?
I have. I liked it.
it's just like, you have to have an exact order. You can't be over it. It's for me, it was just a little bit too strict, I guess. So that's why I went with Planet Unknown.
Yeah, I went Planet Unknown as well, and I think it's you just got to kind of get a feel, right, for the community. And when you talk about Carnegie, it's a game that came out. It's a good game, but it hasn't had the continuing of people talking about it.
Yeah, I remember last year at Dice Tower, it was super hot, and then you don't hear anything about it.
Don't hear anything about it. And Endless Winter also has fallen off big time. Woodcraft similar. Like Woodcraft came out with a bang. So I'm looking at games that have come out with a bang and then just kind of drifted off. People are still talking about Planet Unknown a lot. They've also talking about Wayfarers, but not so much. The Shem Phillips, his games, they're all sort of similar. They different mechanisms here and there, but they all kind of blend into each other, right?
Because they're doing another Kickstarter for the next one already, and so people are thinking about that one now.
Right, yeah. So I think Planet Unknown wins here again because it's a game that has increased its buzz instead of decreasing its buzz.
Yeah. All right, then best innovative game, 3,000 Scoundrels, Blood on the Clock Tower, Cat in the Box, Planet Unknown, and Turing Machine. I went Turing Machine. Rob's going to hate me for it, but I think this is a fantastic game. We played it at Dice Tower as well. He hated it. And Carlos says it's just Mastermind, but I think this is a great game.
I went with Turing Machine as well. And I think you can make the argument that it's not necessarily a game. It's more of an activity.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think the fact that there's a couple hundred puzzles in the box, and then you go to the website and there's thousands more. I think it's innovative in that it brings honest mathematical, computer science game principles. So if you talk about gamification of things, and that's how if I was a computer science teacher or a logic, critical thinking class or any kind of those things, I would bust out this game in a heartbeat because it's like
definitely
it's a way to teach critical thinking and new logic, ordered thinking. So I definitely think that's probably going to win of the nominees. Blood on the Clock Tower is not. It's just again, it's
not that innovative.
It's not that innovative to me.
It's almost like a reamp of like you said, Werewolf or something.
Yeah.
And the thing about Turing Machine is also the when you're talking about innovation, the way that you're checking to see if your answer is correct and all that, like the math that had to go into those cards and their orientation, all that. That's just crazy.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So both.
All right, then we go to Game of the Year.
Yep.
We got Blood on the Clock Tower, Endless Winter, Flamecraft, Foundations of Rome, Heat, Pedal to the Metal, Planet Unknown, Ready, Set, Bet, Return to Dark Tower, Wayfarers of South Tigris, and Wonderland's War, all that we've talked about already. I went with Foundations of Rome because whenever I looked at that list of the ones I have played, that's the one that if I had all those boxes sitting in front of me and I had to pick a game to play right now, ever so slightly, I think I would go to Foundations of Rome with a close second to Planet Unknown.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. I didn't look about what I thought necessarily the game of the year was. I just think, I'm trying to meta-analysis of what do I think the Dice Tower and the greater community of the Dice Tower are going to vote for, and I think it's Heat, Pedal to the Metal. I think there's so much buzz about this game. Everyone's been talking about it. It's been out of print, in print, out of print, in print. Every time it comes in, people are buying it up like crazy. I think that'll be the one. And I think probably out of most of these games, maybe other than Planet Unknown, 5 years from now, I think Heat will still be getting played. But some of these
it's a Days of Wonder game, right?
Yep.
It's going to be in retail, right? So I can agree with that, but also kind of like Rob, I see on the spreadsheet, he divided his by what do I want to win and what do I think will win. These are all things that I want to win. It doesn't necessarily think it's not necessarily what I think will win. It's what I would be voting for.
Yeah,
right?
see, you and I went with we pick what we think will win. We don't get not doing this Rob or slash value of like I think I want I'm only messing with him. But no, yeah, I think Heat's a good game. I think it's a little bit not overrated. People are all about it, and I've played it a couple times now, and I like it. It's a good game. But there's other racing games that I think are comparable. I think Flamme Rouge is this borrows a lot.
This is basically Flamme Rouge, right?
It steals a lot from Flamme Rouge. It does it, but I think what and I'll say this: Flamme Rouge is definitely a bicycling game. It is all about the packs and who speeds out and the sprinter and roller, and it captures the theme of the Tour de France perfectly. I think taking some of those mechanics and the principles of Flamme Rouge and putting it into Heat, and then having the Heat mechanic and the way to do it flips it perfectly and takes it from the biking theme and the Tour de France to a perfect racing game, right? So I really like that.
I would say Heat is also a very good middle ground between something like Downforce and like Rallyman. It's more of a gamer's game than Downforce. It's not quite as unforgiving as spinning out in Rallyman. So it's got that going for it.
Yeah, and some of the other ones they're all great games. Obviously, I just think about the consensus vote is probably going to push Heat ahead just because it's been such a buzz about it for a long period of time. Some of these other games have come out and they've already dying off. Flamecraft and Endless Winter and Wayfarers. They're great games and people are still playing them a crap ton. You just don't hear about it on the podcasts and the YouTubes and the cons and stuff. So that's why I went with Heat. I think that's kind of going to be the one to get it.
Cool. So by the time our next podcast, we'll be recording, these nominations will be out, right? It's this weekend?
Yeah, it's this
not
week.
Nominations, the winners.
The winners this week. I think it's Thursday or Friday is when they'll be going to do the live show.
Hopefully Friday. If not, y'all chat Thursday is going to kind of be ruined if it's already been announced.
Well, I think this Thursday this Thursday's chat is going to be games played in July. And then I think a couple of gentlemen from the Tampa Gaming Guild is going to join us to talk about their facility and how to get involved in gaming there. So I think we probably won't talk about Dice Tower until the following week. So.
Okay, kind of like a wrap up after announced.
Yeah,
gotcha,
wrap up. Yeah. My guess is going to be a wrap up. We'll go through like what Rob and Carlos chose for their bets. We'll go through what the Beans and Dice community did for their choices, and then kind of how we all did compared to the actual winners. I'll do the statistical analysis.
Well, that's a perfect segue into don't miss Thursday night call-in show, 8 p.m. Sorry,
9 to
I'm
11
in the wrong time.
p.m. Eastern time.
It's 8 p.m. for me in Central Time. I always have to do that little bit of math whenever I say that, and I failed this time. Yeah, call in. It's like sports radio. That's how BJ calls it, but for board games. Call in and bring up your own topic or comment on the topic at hand on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I was talking, just to kind of wrap us up, I was talking to some of my buddies, and we are going to try to get a contingent from Louisiana to come out to Dice Tower next year while we're talking about Dice Tower Awards. So I know that they just recently announced when Dice Tower West badges were going to be going on sale, but we're going to be looking for whenever the East badges for next year are going on sale. Have you found out yet if you'll be able to attend next year, Wayne?
No, I won't know until early next year. It all depends upon my wife's work and if we can. When we're planning, like I said, I've said this a few times, we're planning a big family trip to Japan, and so it may be in early July or it may be in early June, depending on when we can both get off of work. So we'll have to see.
Nice.
Yep. So just another plug. If you're listening to this podcast, please share with your friends. Please tell you all please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have our Discord server on the YouTube channel. There's links to the Discord server. We're active there. So please feel free. Give us a rating, give us a review, give us a thumbs up, give us a like. Anything you do there helps get it out to more people. We love to hear. There's a section of our Discord channel specifically for the podcast. And I love getting beat up over my overblown opinions on things, apparently.
People are still talking about Ticket to Ride scoring.
I know. Yeah. So, no, we love it. And I'd love to hear, we've already had a couple people suggest future topics for us, which is great. I think Diego wants to come on and talk about multiplayer solitaire. And BJ gave a suggestion. I said, well, come on, come and join us. So hopefully the next couple of weeks, it won't be just me and you. We'll get some other guests.
So actually, I was just about to say, so I'm going back to work on Friday. And generally, the school year's pretty it's flexible and I can find some time to record, but I have a feeling these first couple weeks may be just a little busy. So if worse comes to worse, maybe they could sub in for me. Maybe next week it'll be Wayne and Diego or Wayne and BJ, but we'll see. We'll figure that out in a week or so.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for listening. And until next time, I'm Mitchell.
And I'm Wayne.
And this is the Beans and Dice Podcast, a podcast about
how we game.
Take it easy.
Thanks for watching the Beans and Dice Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe.